Ladies and gentlemen, come gather round, come gather round, come gather around. Today, we're doing an oil change. One of the best things you can do to make sure your engine lasts a long time. Let's go! This particular vehicle, as with many vehicles, has an engine subframe or cradle assembly. This is kind of nice when you're dropping the whole drivetrain out. You can undo a whack of bolts and just drop the whole thing out the bottom. But today, we're doing a preemptive, let's just maintain it so we don't have to do that. Those subframe cradles are usually pretty good for jacking up the vehicle wherever is convenient. You got to put the jack stands in this reinforced portion just behind the front wheels. Look for it. You'll see a thing that's reinforced. Then you can jack it up there or there. Yeah, a lot of reinforcement. Not there. That's the engine. Not there. That's the transmission. Don't jack it up by that. All right? All right. Oil filters right here can be gotten at, but if I take this plastic shield down, it's going to be a whole lot easier. Grab yourself a wrench and start undoing the bolts that hold it down, or up, technically. If these bolts up here are getting you down, you got to get them bolts down. Then things will be looking up. Oh, yeah. Here we're using a wrench, because wrenches are cheap. Everybody and their dog has a wrench. Or maybe you came into some money and you got yourself an Impact of unknown brand whose initials might be Milwaukee. Not sponsored, but wouldn't mind to be so. Or maybe you don't have any money, but you got like old man muscle. Well, there's a place for you too. You just get in there and show that bolt whose daddy it is. And keep in mind, lefties, loosies, righties, tighties, the whole thing can come apart just fine. Use an oil drain pan when you're doing a floor jack and jack stand oil change, only I'm not. I'm going to use this drain bucket, which just has a big funnel in the top and a big 20-liter pail in the bottom. And I'm just going to drain into that because I'm using a hoist just so you can see. And because my knees hurt when I'm using a floor jack and I don't like working on that. Now with this, you want to try to gamble that where the oil spews out is going to actually hit the funnel. And 9 times out of 10, you're cleaning some of it up. This place, I got lucky. And I also did not drop the drain plug down into the bottom of the bucket, in which case you're rolling up your sleeves and going fishing. It's a good idea to change the seal on the drain plug. I don't. I usually leave it until it leaks, and then I'll replace it. But many shops will put a brand new one on there just to make sure it never leaks. This is the oil filter wrench. It kind of clamps tighter as you're removing it. You do not use these to put the filter on. They're just used for taking it off. We'll get to putting the filter on later. Then, if the drain pan is big enough, it'll catch with the little dribblings out of the drain plug and the filter. In my case, it doesn't quite reach. However, I do have a mop full of solvent, so I can clean this up, because I don't leave no spills on the floor that I can slip and slide and crack my head and spill my brain sauce all over the concrete, because that's embarrassing. At least it was the last time. And it's a good idea to do this while it's warm, so the oil has got all of its ickies in suspension. And let's talk about oil. I like to use a quality oil. This is a oil I like to use, and I'm using an AC Delco filter. There are many different filter types. I don't think it really matters. The interweb is full of opinion. Rotella uses a lot of extra zinc additive in the oil, and it's good for heavy duty, like for diesels and stuff. This is a diesel rated motor oil. Any oil is pretty good, and if you change it frequently, it doesn't matter. I like to put a little bit of oil on the O-ring. Some people put oil inside as well, except if the filter goes on sideways, all the oil you just put in drains all over the floor. So I don't. Some people say, don't bother oiling the O-ring, because why would you bother? There's going to be some residual oil. Some people don't bother filling the filter, because they're like, as soon as you fire this up, how long do you think it's going to take before oil fills it up with the oil pump? You're going to need to decide. I tighten up the filter with my left hand so I can undo it with my right hand. If you're vice versa, do it the other way. So that's all snug. And then we'll put the drain plug back in. These should be tightened a nice torque as per the specs. I tend to just really snug them with the right size wrench. Bonk, snug, And then, because I don't like little dribbles, I wipe off the wee residue of oil that might later drip when I don't want it. Then while I'm under here, I'm going to check things like the exhaust pipes and make sure they're still okay. If I can crush the pipe with my hand, it's already failing. I check all the suspension bushings, and really what I'm looking for is anything that might be faulty. Looseness in the tie rod ends. I'm checking the CV boots on the axles. I'm checking the tie rod or sway bar end links, checking the brake flexible hoses. What I'm looking for is anything that's got an issue before it becomes an issue. And this is why shops will sell oil changes for basically dirt cheap so that they can get you in the shop. It's not that they're trying to screw you, it's that they're looking to keep an eye on your vehicle and make sure they can catch things before they become expensive. Kind of like going to your doctor for an annual checkup so that you avoid the, oh, crikey, if you were here like 5 years ago, this wouldn't be terminal. Also check the belts. Leaks coming out of the front crank seal, which is honestly a relatively easy fix. Any leaks show up on the bottom, the lowest point of the pan. In between the engine and transmission would indicate a leaky rear main seal. Leaks from the axle shafts. I'm really wanting to deal with that. This big honking bolt by my finger, yeah, that one, good job. That's the transmission drain, which reminds me, I really need to change the transmission oil. Probably going to run something cool. While I'm here, I'm going to squeeze them rubber hoses and make sure they look pretty good too. Check for leaks on their connections. Now, you might be the next guy going in here. These are the screws, the fasteners that hold that pan or that plastic cover on the front. You might be the next one going in. So I wire wheeled these off camera, and I'm putting a little bit of Never Sneeze on there to make sure that they come out again for the next person. Now, you want to be careful with this. If you're not careful, you're going to start looking like the Tin Man, and that's getting excessive. Not sure the long-term effect of this on your skin is. I'm wearing surgical gloves because I don't like that stuff on my skin. I usually end up looking like the Tin Man. Also kind of embarrassing. Doesn't taste good, this stuff. Not like other things. Oh, carry on. We're going to put the cover back on. Try your best to not cross-thread any of the fasteners because that's real annoying. Some vehicles you don't have to pull off any covers. Some vehicles you have to pull off the cover to do anything. This car is what this car is. It's pretty affordable, inexpensive vehicle for sure. And then these probably have a torque. I just snug them. That way if they start to rust, nobody wants rust. They probably won't be too tight. But they're never seized, so they're probably not going to rust. And I think I whacked them down with the impact with one ugga-dugga. Just a brip, just a little baby fart of tightness there. Not torque it down till it strips and back it off half a turn. That's for other fasteners. While it's here, you can also give this the wiggly. Top and bottom is a way of checking ball joints. Side to side can check your tie rod ends. We can also get a funnel for putting oil in. Or if you don't have any funnels, you probably have an oil container that you can cut the bottom off. These make sweet funnels. Really easy to make. They're everywhere, even in gas stations in their garbage cans. Free. I love free. However, I've spent a lot of time changing oil, so I honestly don't usually use a funnel because I can pour oil like a boss. This vehicle takes 3.5 liters of oil, so most oil jugs have 4 or 5 liters, but there's increments marked on the side. So if this is a 5-liter jug, I just have to put in 3.5 liters. So I can do math or just pour it in until there's 1.5 liters remaining. If you're into quarts, it's about the same. But it's going to work out. And you pour it in and then check the dipstick. That's the stick for dipping into the oil and seeing what it is. It's not your buddy sitting next to you laughing. I'm just checking a couple times because I don't want to overfill it. Then pull out the dipstick, wipe off whatever schmoo might be on there, stuff her back in, and I like to see this at the full line. It's okay if it's a little bit above because some of that's going to end up in the filter, but once we have the oil in, it's at the full line. Wipe off any debris, don't let it fall in the motor, and put the oil cap back on. Does not have to be super tight. These don't usually come undone by themselves. Just snug. That'll work. So we're going to fire it up and make sure it all works. You're going to look for the oil light, which is in the bottom left of the speedometer, right there with my little flashy finger. We're going to crank it. It should shut off in about 3 seconds or less, and this one shut off pretty much right away. Awesome possum. It's a good idea to check under the vehicle while it's running to make sure you didn't forget anything, you don't have oil peeing out all over the place. And then I'm just checking to make sure the oil is where I want it to be. And here we're just a tick below the full line. I'm good. If it's a customer vehicle, I like it right on the full line. This is my own vehicle. As long as it's in there, I'm also pretty good. Good idea to wipe off any fingerprints, grease, oil, dust, dirt, debris, cat, whatever, hair, bird poop, whatever you might find under the hood. Just wipe it off nice and clean. Makes the customer think that their vehicle is nice and clean. Also a good idea to check the air filter. You saw me flashing that there just a moment. This one's recently been replaced. And I'm using a bit of compressed air to blow the last little bit of it. And you missed a spot. There you go. What are you doing, slacker? All right, break it up. Back to work. Another area that's often neglected in the maintenance of a vehicle is checking your tire pressures. This is, oh, wow, that's not good. You can find out what your tire pressure is supposed to be on this plate inside the door, in which case on this vehicle, 32 pounds per square inch. We're going to pump that up. And oil change, pretty much. That's how we do it around here. Just trying to keep an eye on everything on the vehicle so that I'm aware of what's going on. Try to make things last a whole lot longer for the least amount of money, because I'm cheap. You wouldn't be driving one of these if you weren't cheap also. Thanks for coming out. Take care.